Hey, welcome back. Session 6 of Mindfulness for Real Estate Professionals. This week, we're introducing managing stress as an aspect of mindfulness, the difference mindfulness makes in our ability to manage stress. Super exciting. Last week, we talked about integrating mindfulness into daily activities, walking meditation, eating meditation, and how those could inform informal practices that just really, if you just walk from the car to the house mindfully every day, or from the house back to the car, the garage, if you just move mindfully, you begin to pierce the veil of unconsciousness around us. And you will find moments of presence descending upon you with more frequency. The principle is simply the more you practice, the better you get. It's really not any more complex than that. And I wanted last week to sort of explode the myth that mindfulness means meditation. It doesn't. Mindfulness includes meditation, but it's not just sitting in meditation. You can have a cup of coffee mindfully. You can drive mindfully. And that's the point, that you get yourself into a position where you're living your life mindfully. Now, that doesn't mean every moment of every day. It means that there are moments in every day where you're mindful. That's the point. Not that it's all mindful. No. That there are moments, larger and larger moments in every day, or more frequent moments in every day where you are mindful. So let's talk about how that can impact stress and how all that emotional response and how all this begins to add up for that. So there are physiological and psychological aspects to stress. No shocker there. Yeah. So in our business, tight deadlines, client demands, miscommunications, market fluctuations, all begin to add up to things like that happen. Market changes, client wants something over there. We have to get something done by 3 o'clock. And then we wind up over here with a story about that, or a conversation about that, or we live in a world about that, that if we are not mindful of all of that, that's all those unconscious, unmindful thoughts descending upon us add up to stress in our body and in our lives, and it impacts our health and our performance. And we want to really look to see, look, the deadlines are the deadlines. The market does what the market does. Our clients need what our clients need. All those things, that's the weather. Those things happen. What we do with that is up to us. The market drops. That's the first arrow. We don't need to be there when the second arrow shows up. We don't need to be there to say, oh, this is a tragedy. I'm screwed. This is never going to work out. We have a 3 o'clock deadline. That's the first arrow. We don't need to be there when we start thinking about, well, I'll never make it. I'm not going to make it home. All that stuff doesn't need to be there. So we're really talking about the second arrow. We're never going to deal with market fluctuations. We're never going to change market fluctuations. That's the way it is. So we want to be able to observe our reactions and observe our interpretations and observe how we feel about certain things so that we can diffuse and not be there when the second arrow gets there. So we've done breathing exercises that help calm the mind. There are specific breathing exercises that you might try on. There is an app called, I believe it's called Awesome Breath. It'll be in the show notes, where they have timed breath meditations, just breath work. There are different patterns that you can manage your breath in that will produce different physiological responses in the body. And they're worth exploring. So look up that app in the show notes and check that out if you're interested in using your breath to calm the mind. You can do body scan. We've done body scans. You can just take 5, 10, 15 minutes and scan the body and be with, not change, not relax, none of that. Just let it be. different responses and let the tension disappear as you give it permission. And then labeling emotions. And that's the meditation that we're going to do this week is labeling. So we'll take a look at that as well. Then you can begin to use these techniques and these practices before responding to a client. I don't know how many times a week I get an email or a text and my response is less than stellar. This is less than stellar news. And there is a part of me that immediately wants to respond. Like somehow I get the text or I get the email or I get the call and I feel like somehow I'm obligated to respond immediately. And that is almost never the case. It is almost never the case that someone is demanding an immediate response, where certainly nobody is ever demanding a response where I can't take a breath, where I can't breathe and look and see what's the most appropriate response to this. And frankly, nobody needs a response. Most people don't need a response the same day, like demand it, unless they say when they need a response. Now, sometimes they need a response within the hour. It's an emergency situation and something needs to happen, but at least you could take a breath so that and the more you've been practicing mindfulness, the more response time you have and the less reactivity you'll have. That time of reactivity will get shorter and shorter, and you'll be able to take that breath and respond appropriately to what's happening. Before you go in for a listing appointment, I just did this the other day. I went for a listing appointment, and before I got out of the car, I took 5 minutes and I just sat and I breathed and I took the time to calm my mind and get present to what I was present to, and walked in there and gave him my full attention with no judgment and no assessment, and completely was in his world and got the listing. But the point is that whether I got it or not, who was there was someone who was there, not someone who was like, oh my God, I need this listing. I got to get this listing. Okay. So all the opportunities that you're walking into that generate stress, you can begin to apply some of these practices and diffuse that, not be there when the second arrow shows up. That's the point. The work we're going to do this week in the meditation practice is called labeling, and it gives us an opportunity to slow down the process. See, things happen, and then we say they're stressful. Things happen, and then we say they shouldn't happen. Things happen, and then we say, oh, that's less than stellar. You want to start to practice noticing your labeling. When things happen, you say it's good or it's bad. When Shakespeare had Hamlet say, things are never good nor bad, but thinking makes it so, this is what he's talking about. We label things good or bad. And if you can practice noticing you're labeling them, all of a sudden things stop happening to you and things just start happening. And the more you can see things happening rather than things happening to you, the more space you'll have. And mindful practices like this will transform your relationship to what's happening around you. One of the most powerful practices we have is labeling. So take that on this week. Do your same practices with the journaling, everything that we're doing, keep going. Okay. You might take the time to identify personal stress triggers. What pisses you off? What gets you stressed? What happens there like that? Okay. Next week, we're going to work on focus and productivity. We did a little bit of that last week in terms of, big daily practices. Next week, we're going to go a deep dive in that. All right. We'll see you next week. Party on, Wayne.